Those cases require some specialization. I mean, you're dealing with very vulnerable victims.
Today we're continuing our Law and Order series with some time with our Chief Deputy District Attorney, Jeremy Markowitz. So Jeremy, thank you so much for joining us today. So I really appreciate you taking this time.
Thank you.
So I understand you work very, very closely with many of the Deputy District Attorneys. So can you tell us how cases are assigned?
We have just a hierarchy in the office. You have our elected DA, then you have myself as the Chief Deputy. We then have 3 senior deputies, and off the top of my head, I may say the numbers wrong. I believe we have 9 deputy district attorneys, 2, and we consider those felony deputies. And then under that, we have our misdemeanor team. So the misdemeanor team themselves, they basically handle, DUIs, your non-domestic violence misdemeanors. Once the younger attorneys, they get a little more experience, we let them take some felony cases. They may have some felony drug possession cases, but from the legislature last year is, several drug possessions now are misdemeanors, so they get those. Then our felony attorneys break off into a little more team-oriented. We have 2 felony attorneys that do domestic violence cases. One of the felony attorneys and one of the senior deputies do child abuse cases. And then we have a felony attorney assigned to the MADGE team, so the Medford Area Drug and Gang Enforcement team. We have a senior deputy that is essentially our mental health deputy. They run civil commitments, they attend mental health court, they help advise other DAs on if we have cases where it looks like there's going to be a mental health aspect or a mental health defense advanced by the other side. We use them as a consultant, or those cases may even go directly to that attorney then, because they are familiar with the diagnosis, they have the access and understand the language that you may have to deal with in those types of cases.
So in that, what I'm noticing, there's that specialization. How is that benefiting the system as you see it?
Those cases require some specialization. I mean, you're dealing with very vulnerable victims, whether it's somebody who's caught in the vicious cycle of domestic violence, or you're dealing with a child who's been, exploited in some way by, a lot of times, somebody close to the family. And those attorneys they get extra training. They get, more involvement with community partners where they're working, in a team sort of format and trying to address the issues that may come up in the case. And I think for our office, and I think in general, I think in most offices, you find that specialization in those 2, domestic violence and child abuse, because they are so very specific. And there's tons of research on both of those, and those attorneys become very familiar with that research. And I think it helps them in evaluating cases. It helps them in negotiating cases. It helps them just in the process of those cases and dealing with the victims in those cases. And not only the victims, but dealing with the family members in those cases that may be witnesses in one or the other situation.